The sun had barely risen when a young boy stepped out of a small apartment in the corner of a quiet street. The world around him was still waking up, birds chirping, the air cool and still, and the faint sound of cars starting in the distance. He pulled his thin jacket tighter around himself, the same one he wore every day, and started walking down the cracked sidewalk with a small backpack hanging from one shoulder. It was Saturday, but for him it wasn't a day for sleeping in or playing games. He had a job at a small grocery store across town, where he helped stock shelves and sweep floors. It wasn't much, but every few dollars he made helped his mother pay the bills. She worked long hours cleaning offices, and even though she never complained, he could always see the tiredness in her eyes when she came home late at night. That was what kept him going. The thought that maybe one day he could make things better for her. The streets were quiet as he walked. The houses were close together, some with peeling paint and broken fences, but he didn't mind. It was home. He had grown up here all his life, and he knew every corner, every neighbor, and even the stray dogs that sometimes followed him for a few blocks. He wasn't embarrassed about where he came from. In his heart, he believed that where you start doesn't decide where you'll end up. He had big dreams, ones that didn't fit into the small neighborhood he lived in. He loved to take things apart and figure out how they worked. Old radios, broken phones, discarded bicycles, anything people threw away he saw as a chance to learn. He kept a little box under his bed filled with parts and wires, calling it his future. His mother used to laugh and say, "One day, you'll build something that changes the world." He wasn't sure about that, but he knew he wanted to build something. That morning, as he made his way down the street, he passed by a bakery. The smell of fresh bread drifted into the air and his stomach growled. He hadn't eaten breakfast yet, but he didn't stop. He was saving his money, even if it meant skipping a meal sometimes. He had been putting away a few dollars every week, hoping to save enough to buy a used laptop. He wanted to learn more about computers, maybe even coding. The idea of creating something from nothing fascinated him. The road stretched ahead, the sun climbing higher, painting everything in soft gold. He liked mornings like this. They made him feel calm and full of purpose. While most kids his age were still in bed or scrolling through their phones, he was already halfway to work, planning out his day in his mind. He liked feeling useful. It made him feel closer to his dreams, even if he was just stacking cans or sweeping aisles. Halfway there, he stopped for a moment to tie his worn-out shoe. The laces were frayed and the sole had started to peel, but he didn't complain. He had learned early that complaining didn't change much. Working did. Hoping did. He stood up again and kept walking, passing the small park where children played after school. He smiled, remembering when he used to play there with his friends before life got busier and responsibilities grew heavier. A bus passed by, splashing water from a puddle onto the side of the road. He stepped aside just in time, chuckling softly to himself. "Almost," he whispered. Little moments like that didn't bother him. He had learned to laugh them off. Life wasn't perfect, but it had its good moments too. The sound of his mother humming in the kitchen, the way the sunlight came through their small window in the mornings, the joy of fixing something broken and seeing it work again. As he reached the main road, cars rushed past him. The city was waking up now, everyone hurrying somewhere. He walked carefully along the edge, his eyes on the traffic, until he noticed something up ahead. A sleek black car was parked on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking. It looked expensive, something you didn't see much around his neighborhood. The car's front tire was completely flat, and beside it stood a man in a suit, pacing back and forth, holding a phone to his ear. The boy slowed his steps. He wasn't the type to stare, but something about the scene caught his attention. The man looked frustrated, maybe even a little lost. He kept glancing at his watch, then back at the car. The boy could tell he was in a hurry. The man tried to lift the trunk but seemed unsure what to do next. The boy thought for a moment. He was running a little late for work already, but something inside him told him to stop. It was just how he was raised. His mother always said, "If you see someone who needs help and you can do something about it, don't walk away." He hesitated for a second, then took a deep breath and walked over. "Excuse me, sir," he said politely. The man turned, looking surprised to see a teenager standing there. "Do you need help?" The man blinked, clearly unsure. Yes. My tire's flat and I've been trying to call for roadside service, but they said it'll take almost an hour. I have an important meeting downtown." His voice sounded rushed, impatient. He looked at the boy's worn clothes and small backpack, probably wondering what he could do. "I can help," the boy said simply. "If you have a spare tire, I can change it for you." The man frowned slightly as if doubting him, then opened the trunk. "There should be one here somewhere," he said, moving a few things aside. The boy quickly found the tools and the spare, rolling up his sleeves. He had done this before. His uncle had shown him how to change a tire years ago. It wasn't hard, just needed patience and a bit of strength. The man stood nearby, still watching, his phone pressed to his ear again. The boy crouched down and started loosening the bolts one by one. His hands got a little dirty, but he didn't mind. The morning sun was warmer now, and sweat began to form on his forehead. He focused quietly, his movement steady and sure. In less than 10 minutes, he had the flat tire off and the new one in place. When he was done, he stood up and wiped his hands on his jeans. "All set," he said with a small smile. The man looked genuinely surprised. "You did that fast," he said. "Thank you." He reached into his wallet and pulled out some cash, holding it out. "Here, take this." The boy shook his head immediately. "No, sir." "That's okay. I was just passing by. But you helped me," the man insisted. "You deserve something." "It's fine," the boy said, stepping back. "My mom always says you don't help people for money. You help because it's the right thing to do." The man looked at him for a long moment, clearly moved by the words. He slowly put his wallet away. "What's your name, son?" the boy told him. The man repeated it as if he wanted to remember it. "You're a good kid," he said finally. "Not many people would stop like that. Most just drive by." The boy smiled shyly, adjusting his backpack. "It's okay. I was happy to help. I hope you make it to your meeting." The man nodded, still watching as the boy started walking away. There was something about that moment, something neither of them could quite explain. For the boy, it was just another morning, another small act of kindness. For the man, it was something more, a reminder that there were still good-hearted people in the world, even in the most unexpected places. The boy didn't look back. He had no idea that this small encounter, this simple choice to stop and help, would soon change the course of his life forever. He just kept walking, the sound of cars fading behind him, his mind already drifting toward the rest of his day. He was a little late for work, but somehow he didn't care. There was a quiet satisfaction in his chest, the kind that comes from doing something good without expecting anything in return. The city moved on as if nothing had happened. But in that ordinary morning, a chain of events had quietly begun, one that would lead the boy from that cracked sidewalk to places he never could have imagined. The boy continued walking toward his job, not thinking much about the moment he had just experienced. Helping someone change a tire didn't seem like a big deal to him. It was simply what he was taught to do. Help when you can and move on without expecting anything back. He was just happy that the man could get to wherever he needed to go. The sound of the car engine starting faded behind him, and before long, the city's morning noise took over again. When he finally reached the small grocery store, the front sign flickered weakly, one of the letters barely hanging on. He pushed the door open and the familiar bell above it chimed softly. The smell of old wood and cleaning supplies filled the air. The store owner, an older man with kind eyes and a slow walk, waved at him from behind the counter. "You're a bit late today," the man said in a gentle voice. "Yeah," the boy replied, slightly out of breath. "I stopped to help someone with a flat tire," the man chuckled softly. "Always helping people, aren't you? That's a good habit to have. The world needs more of that." The boy smiled and nodded, putting his backpack behind the counter before heading to the back room. He started unpacking boxes of canned goods and lining them neatly on the shelves. It was quiet work, but he didn't mind. He liked having time to think. His mind often wandered to the future, what it would be like to go to a big school, work with real machines, and design things that made life easier for people. Those thoughts always gave him a little spark of hope. A few customers came in during the morning. He helped them find items, carried groceries for an elderly woman, and swept the floor after a few kids ran through with muddy shoes. The hours passed, and before he knew it, the sun was high in the sky. During his lunch break, he sat outside on the back steps with a small sandwich wrapped in foil. The bread was dry, but he ate slowly, enjoying the quiet. He thought about the man with the black car again. Something about him stuck in his mind. Not the car or the suit, but the way he had looked surprised when the boy refused the money. Maybe people didn't expect kindness without a price anymore. That thought made him a little sad. His mother had always said that doing good was its own reward, even if no one ever noticed. She believed that the world had a way of bringing kindness back to you, even if it took years. He finished his sandwich, brushed off the crumbs, and went back inside. The rest of the day passed in a blur of small tasks and quiet smiles. By the time the evening came, his legs were tired, but there was a feeling of peace in him. He closed up the shop, waved goodbye to the owner, and started the long walk home. The streetlights had just started to flicker on, painting long shadows on the ground. When he got home, his mother was sitting at their small kitchen table, going through some papers. She looked up and smiled. "How was work, baby?" she asked softly. "It was good," he said, hanging his jacket on the chair. "Tired, though. Oh, and this morning I helped a man with a flat tire." His mother paused and looked up. "You did? That's nice of you. Did he thank you?" "Yeah," he said, grinning a little. "He even tried to give me money, but I told him no." She shook her head, smiling proudly. "That's my boy. Always doing the right thing." He sat down beside her, watching her shuffle through the stack of bills on the table. She sighed quietly, rubbing her temples. He knew money was tight again. She tried to hide it from him, but he could always tell. He wished he could do more, earn more, help more, but for now, all he could do was keep working, keep saving, and keep believing that things would change someday. Later that night, after dinner, he sat on his small bed, tinkering with an old radio he had found in a pile of discarded junk near the repair shop. The screws were rusted and the wires were a tangled mess, but he was determined to fix it. He liked the challenge. Every click of his screwdriver echoed in the quiet apartment. His mother was already asleep in the next room, and the streetlights outside flickered through the thin curtains. As he worked, his thoughts drifted back to the man again. There had been something different about him, something important, though he couldn't explain what. Maybe it was the man's tone of voice or the way he had looked at him before driving off. Whatever it was, it left an impression he couldn't shake. Still, he pushed the thought aside. It wasn't like he'd ever see him again. Days turned into a week. Life continued as usual. The boy went to school, then to work, helped his mother when he could, and spent his free time fixing things. One evening, when he came home from school, his mother was sitting on the couch with an envelope in her hands. She looked confused but a little excited. "This came for you," she said, handing it over. He frowned slightly. He didn't usually get mail. The envelope was plain and white, but it had a clean, elegant handwriting on the front with his name. Inside was a small note and a business card. The note read, "Thank you again for your help last week. I'd like to see you this Saturday for lunch if you're free. I have something to discuss with you. Mr. Thompson." There was an address and a phone number written below. The business card looked expensive, printed with gold letters that read Thompson Technologies. The boy's heart skipped a beat. He recognized the name immediately. It was the same man with the flat tire. His mother looked at him curiously. "Who's that?" "The man I helped," he said softly, still staring at the card. He's rich. Like really rich. I think he owns a big company." His mother raised her eyebrows. "And he wants to meet you? For lunch?" "Yeah," the boy said, reading the note again. "I don't know why." His mother leaned back, thinking. "Well, maybe he just wants to thank you properly. You should go. But be polite, dress nicely, and don't ask for anything. Just be yourself." He nodded, though his mind was spinning. Why would a millionaire want to meet him? Maybe the man felt bad about not giving him money. Maybe he wanted to offer him something small, like a job washing cars or helping at his office. Whatever it was, the boy knew one thing. He couldn't miss this chance. The rest of the week moved slowly. Every night he thought about what he would say, how he should act. He didn't have fancy clothes, just one clean shirt and a pair of jeans without holes. He decided that would have to do. His mother ironed the shirt carefully the night before, smiling at him like she was seeing something in him that even he didn't see yet. When Saturday morning came again, the boy woke up early. His heart was racing, but he tried to stay calm. He got dressed, brushed his shoes as best as he could, and took one last look in the mirror. "You've got this," he whispered to himself. "Just be honest." The restaurant was far from his neighborhood, in a part of town filled with tall buildings, glass windows, and cars that gleamed like mirrors. He had never been anywhere like it before. As he walked up to the door, his hands felt a little sweaty. Inside, everything looked spotless. Soft music playing, waiters moving quietly, people dressed in suits and dresses. He stood there for a moment, feeling out of place, until a waiter approached. "Can I help you, young man?" the waiter asked kindly. "Yes, sir," he said nervously. "I'm here to meet Mr. Thompson." The waiter nodded and led him to a table near the window. And there he was, the same man from the roadside, sitting in a crisp suit, smiling warmly as the boy approached. "You made it," the man said, standing to shake his hand. "Yes, sir," the boy replied, still unsure what to say. "Thank you for inviting me." The man gestured for him to sit down. "I should be the one thanking you," he said. "That day you didn't just help me with a tire. You reminded me of something important." The boy tilted his head, curious, but the man didn't explain right away. Instead, he called the waiter over and ordered lunch for both of them. The boy sat quietly, looking out the window at the city below, not knowing that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. The waiter left after placing the glasses of water on the table. The boy sat quietly, unsure where to look. Everything in the restaurant looked perfect. The shining silverware, the smooth white plates, the way the soft music filled the room. It was a place meant for people who belonged to another world, a world far from his small apartment and his grocery store job. The man across from him smiled kindly. "You look nervous," he said. "A little," the boy admitted, his voice low. "That's all right," the man replied. "You're doing fine. I just wanted to thank you properly for helping me that day. You really saved me from being late to an important meeting." The boy shrugged slightly. "I'm glad I could help, sir. Anyone would have done the same." The man chuckled. "You'd be surprised. Dozens of cars passed by before you stopped. Most people don't stop for strangers anymore." The boy didn't know what to say to that. He just smiled politely and looked down at the glass of water in front of him. The man studied him for a moment, the way he sat, the quiet way he spoke, the careful respect in his tone. There was something honest about him, something that couldn't be faked. "So tell me about yourself," the man said after a pause. "How old are you? Do you go to school?" "Yes, sir. I'm 15. I go to the local high school," the boy answered. "Do you like it?" The boy hesitated. "Sometimes," he said honestly. "I like learning, but I like fixing things more. I help at a grocery store after school. And when I get home, I work on old radios and things people throw away. I like figuring out how they work." The man smiled again, leaning forward with interest. "You fix things?" "Yes, sir. I can't buy new things, so I try to repair the broken ones," the boy said simply. "I want to learn about computers and machines one day. Maybe design something useful." Something in the man's eyes softened. He remembered being that age once. Hungry to learn, full of dreams, but unsure how to make them real. "That's a good goal," he said. "Do you want to study engineering?" The boy's eyes lit up. "Yes! I read about it sometimes. I don't understand everything, but I want to. I just don't have a computer yet. I'm saving up for one." The man nodded slowly, impressed by his determination. "And your family?" he asked. "It's just me and my mom," the boy replied. "She works cleaning offices at night. She's tired most of the time, but she always tells me to keep trying. She says things will get better if I work hard." The man was quiet for a moment. There was a lump in his throat that he didn't expect. He looked at the boy again, at his simple shirt, his worn-out shoes, his hands that were rough from work. This wasn't just a polite young man. This was someone who had already learned what effort and kindness meant. Their food arrived, and the boy thanked the waiter softly. He looked at the dish in front of him, grilled chicken and vegetables that looked far too fancy. He hesitated before taking the first bite. The man noticed and smiled. "Don't worry, it's just food." "Eat as much as you like," the boy nodded, a little embarrassed. "It's really good," he said after the first bite. "I've never had anything like this." "I'm glad you like it," the man said warmly. For a while, they ate quietly, the boy occasionally glancing around at the people in suits, the elegant laughter from other tables, the sound of glassware clinking. He felt out of place but also strangely inspired. Maybe one day he could belong to a world like this too, not because of money but because of knowledge and effort. After a few minutes, the man spoke again. "You know, I was a lot like you when I was young," he said thoughtfully. "I grew up with very little. My parents couldn't afford much and I had to work after school too. But I was lucky, someone believed in me. They gave me a chance to learn, to grow." The boy listened carefully. "And now you have your own company," he said, glancing at the business card on the table. The man smiled modestly. "Yes, but it didn't happen overnight. It took years of hard work, mistakes, and people who helped me along the way." The boy leaned forward slightly, curious. "What made you keep going when it got hard?" The man thought for a moment. "Belief," he said finally. "Not just in myself, but in the idea that my situation didn't have to define my future. I promised myself that if I ever succeeded, I'd help someone else who reminded me of where I came from." He looked directly at the boy then, his eyes kind but serious. "When you helped me that day, it wasn't just a flat tire you fixed. You reminded me of something I had almost forgotten, what it feels like to give without expecting anything back." The boy blinked, unsure how to respond. "I didn't think much about it," he said quietly. "I just saw someone who needed help. And that," the man said softly, "is exactly why it meant so much." The boy felt his chest tighten with emotion. No one had ever spoken to him like that before, as if his small actions mattered. He looked out the window, pretending to focus on the cars below, but really he was trying to hide the way his eyes watered just a little. The man didn't press him. Instead, he changed the subject gently. "Tell me about the things you fix. What's the most difficult thing you've repaired?" The boy smiled, grateful for the distraction. "Probably a radio that had no sound. It took me 3 nights to figure out the problem. One of the wires was broken deep inside. I didn't have the right tools, so I used what I could find, a paperclip, some tape, and an old battery. It worked in the end," the man laughed softly. "That's impressive. You've got an engineer's mind already." The boy blushed a little, shaking his head. "I just like figuring things out." "Don't lose that," the man said kindly. "That curiosity, it's what makes inventors, creators, and leaders." For a while they just talked, about school, work, life, dreams. The boy found himself opening up more than he expected. He told the man about how he helped his mom fix small things around their apartment, how he wanted to build something useful someday, maybe a machine that could help people save energy or make work easier. The man listened to every word, asking questions, nodding, smiling. It wasn't pity in his eyes, and it was respect. He saw potential in the boy, something genuine and bright. When lunch ended, the man looked at his watch. "I have to get to another meeting soon," he said, "but I'm really glad you came." "Thank you for inviting me," the boy said sincerely. "I didn't expect this." "Sometimes life brings us people we're meant to meet," the man said as he stood. "You've got something special in you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." He reached into his pocket and handed the boy an envelope. "Don't open it now," he said gently. "Wait until you get home," the boy hesitated. "I can't take money. It's not money," the man interrupted with a smile. "Just something I think you might find useful." The boy nodded, still unsure but too polite to argue. They shook hands again, the man's grip firm, the boy's steady. "I'll be in touch," the man said as he turned to leave. "Keep working hard." The boy watched him go, the sound of polished shoes fading across the marble floor. For a few seconds he just stood there, staring at the envelope in his hand. His heart thumped softly. He didn't know why, but something deep inside told him that this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning. When he finally stepped out of the restaurant, the sun was warm against his face. The city seemed brighter somehow, the air lighter. He looked at the busy streets, the tall buildings, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. He held the envelope tightly all the way home. His mind raced with possibilities. Maybe it was a thank you letter. Maybe an invitation to visit his company, or maybe just words of encouragement. Whatever it was, he could already tell it meant something important. When he reached his apartment, his mother was waiting at the table again. "How did it go?" she asked, standing up. "It was amazing," he said with a smile. "He was really kind." "And what's that in your hand?" she asked, nodding toward the envelope. He sat down slowly and opened it. Inside there was a handwritten note and something else. A card with his name printed neatly on it. The note read, "Here's your first step toward your dream. Use it wisely." Behind the note was a small voucher, a full scholarship to a technology training program for young inventors. The boy froze, his eyes wide. His mother gasped softly, covering her mouth. "Oh my goodness." He looked up at her, speechless. All he could do was smile. The kind of smile that comes when you realize the world might be bigger and kinder than you ever imagined. That night, As he lay in bed, the envelope resting on his chest, he couldn't stop thinking about what the man had said. Sometimes life brings us people we're meant to meet. He knew now that this meeting was no accident. Something had begun that day, something that could change his life forever. The next morning, the boy woke up earlier than usual. The sun was still climbing through the thin curtains, painting the room with a soft golden glow. For a few seconds, he lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to remember if everything that happened the day before was real or just a dream. Then he turned his head and saw the envelope lying on the small table beside his bed. The sight of it made his heart beat faster. It wasn't a dream. He sat up and picked it up carefully, running his fingers over the words written on the note inside. "Here's your first step toward your dream. Use it wisely." He read it again and again, unable to stop smiling. A scholarship to a technology training program. He had never even imagined something like that could happen to him. His mother was already awake, humming softly in the kitchen. The smell of fried eggs filled the air. When he walked in, she turned around and smiled. "Morning, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Happy," he said, unable to hide it. "I still can't believe it." She placed a plate in front of him and sat down. "You deserve it," she said gently. "You've worked hard for this, even if you didn't know anyone was watching." He nodded, still processing it all. "Do you think I can really do it? That program must be for really smart people." His mother reached across the table and touched his hand. "You can do anything if you put your heart into it. Remember that?" He smiled and looked down at his food, thinking about how much she had sacrificed for him. Every late night, every extra shift, all of it led to this small spark of hope. After breakfast, he packed his backpack and went to school. It felt different that day. The hallways that usually seemed dull now looked brighter. Even his classmates' chatter didn't bother him. He carried a secret inside, a secret that made him walk a little taller. At lunch, he sat under a tree and pulled out the note again. The handwriting was neat, confident. He traced the words with his finger and wondered if he'd ever see the man again. He had said, "I'll be in touch." Maybe he meant it. Maybe he didn't. But the boy believed him. Days turned into weeks. He filled out the scholarship form that came with the envelope, sent it back by mail, and waited. Every day after school, he'd check the small mailbox outside their apartment, hoping for another letter. Sometimes it was just bills or flyers, but he never gave up hope. One afternoon, about 3 weeks later, he came home from school to find his mother standing near the phone, her eyes wide. "Someone called for you," she said. "They said it was important. Who was it?" he asked, dropping his backpack to the floor. She handed him a small note where she had written down the name and number. He recognized it immediately. It was the same name printed on that business card, Thompson Technologies. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the phone and dialed. It rang twice before a calm, familiar voice answered. "Hello?" "Hi, sir," the boy said quickly. "It's me, the boy who helped you that day." The man's voice brightened instantly. "Ah, I'm glad you called back. I was hoping to speak with you. How are you?" "I'm good, sir. Thank you again for everything," the boy replied, trying not to sound too nervous. "I'm the one who should be thanking you," the man said. "Listen, I have some news for you." "Are you sitting down?" The boy quickly pulled out a chair and sat. "Yes, sir." "Well," the man continued, "I spoke with the directors of the youth program we sponsor, and they've reviewed your application. They were impressed. Not just with your grades, but with your story. You've been accepted into the full program. All expenses covered." The boy's mouth fell open. He didn't even know what to say. "Really?" "Really," the man said with a warm laugh. "Congratulations. You'll be starting next month. You'll get all the details in a packet we're sending you. It'll include transportation, materials, and everything you'll need." Tears welled up in the boy's eyes before he could stop them. "Thank you, sir. I don't know how to say thank you enough." "You don't have to," the man replied softly. "Just promise me one thing, to keep working hard. Don't lose that spark I saw in you, deal?" "Deal," the boy said quickly. They spoke for a few more minutes, and then the man said, "Tell your mother I said hello, and that I look forward to meeting her soon." After the call ended, the boy just sat there, staring at the phone. His mother came over, anxious to know what happened. "Well?" she asked. He looked up at her, eyes shining. "I got in, Mom. They accepted me." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she smiled so wide it made his heart ache. She pulled him into a hug, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew something good would happen for you." They stood like that for a while, holding on to each other as if afraid the moment would disappear. The next few weeks were busy. Letters came in the mail confirming everything. The scholarship covered transportation, supplies, even meals during the classes. It was more than either of them could have hoped for. The boy spent his evenings going through the program's welcome materials, reading every word. It talked about learning computer basics, robotics, and how to create small projects using simple tools. His excitement grew with every page. One night, as he sat by the window, his mother joined him. "You know," she said softly, "when you were little, you used to take apart the old radio I had. You'd sit there for hours trying to fix it. I used to worry you'd break it for good. But you didn't. You made it work again. You always had that gift." He smiled at the memory. "I remember that. I didn't even know what I was doing then." "You still don't give yourself enough credit," she said gently. "This is your time now. Don't waste it." "I won't," he said firmly. As the days counted down to the start of the program, he found it hard to sleep. His mind was full of ideas, things he wanted to learn, things he wanted to build. He started sketching designs in an old notebook, little machines and gadgets that could make daily chores easier. He didn't know if they would ever work, but dreaming about them made him feel alive. Finally, the first day of the program arrived. A small bus came to pick him up early in the morning. His mother packed him a sandwich and gave him a hug so tight he could hardly breathe. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." He climbed onto the bus, waving goodbye as it pulled away from the curb. The ride was long, but he didn't mind. The city passed by outside the window. Tall buildings, busy streets, people rushing everywhere. When the bus finally stopped, he stepped out and looked around in awe. The building in front of him was large and modern, with glass doors and a bright sign that read, "Thompson Technologies Youth Academy." Inside, he saw students from all kinds of backgrounds, boys and girls his age, some even younger. Everyone looked curious, excited, a little nervous. The staff welcomed them warmly, handing out name tags and materials. The boy couldn't stop smiling. He felt like he had entered a new world, one that had been waiting for him all along. During the orientation, one of the instructors explained how the program worked. They would learn about basic circuits, coding, teamwork, and creative problem solving. There were workshops and group projects. The goal, the instructor said, is not just to teach you technology, but to help you believe in what you can do. Those words stayed in his head all day. Believe in what you can do. By the afternoon, he was already working with a small group on a simple project, building a small robot that could follow a line drawn on the floor. His hands moved quickly, his mind fully focused. Every wire, every small part felt like a piece of his dream coming together. When the session ended, he was the last one to leave the room. He stood there for a while, looking at the unfinished robot. For the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. Outside, the man who had helped him reach this place was standing near the entrance, speaking to one of the instructors. He noticed the boy and smiled. "How was your first day?" he asked. "It was amazing, sir," the boy said. "I learned so much already." "I knew you would," the man replied, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, this is just the beginning. Keep that same energy, and one day you'll be the one teaching others." The boy grinned, nodding. "I will, sir. I promise." The man smiled back and said, "Good. I'll be watching your journey closely." As the boy walked toward the waiting bus that evening, he looked back once more at the building. The glass reflected the golden sunset, and for the first time he truly believed that his life was about to change forever. Weeks turned into months, and the boy's life began to change in quiet, steady ways. Each morning he boarded the small bus that took him to the technology program. At first, he sat quietly by the window, watching the city roll past, his thoughts full of what he would learn that day. But as time went on, he started talking to other students. Some came from schools with big computer labs, others from neighborhoods like his, where opportunity was rare. Slowly, he started to feel that maybe he belonged among them. Inside the bright classrooms, he learned things that once seemed impossible. How to write small bits of code, how electricity flowed through a circuit, how teamwork made ideas stronger. The instructors encouraged him often, impressed by his patience and creativity. He was especially good at solving problems others found too complicated. While some gave up after a few tries, he kept at it until he found a solution. One afternoon, their instructor gave them a challenge. "Your next project," she said, smiling, "is to build something that can help people in real life. It can be simple or complex, but it must be useful." The room buzzed with excitement. Everyone began scribbling ideas. Some wanted to make toys or games. Others talked about robots that could clean. But the boy sat quietly thinking about his mother, about the long nights she came home tired, about how she still managed to smile and cook dinner no matter how exhausted she was. He thought about how she often dropped things when her hands hurt from cleaning. Then an idea came to him. A small, lightweight tool that could help pick things up without bending over or straining her hands. It would be simple to make using materials they already had. He spent the next few days sketching designs in his notebook, erasing and redrawing, testing pieces with whatever scraps he could find. His team liked his idea and helped him gather parts: plastic rods, rubber grips, tiny gears from old kits. Bit by bit, they brought it to life. When they finally tested it, the tool worked. Clumsy at first, but effective. It could pick up a cup, a pen, even a piece of paper. The instructor clapped her hands in delight. "That's wonderful," she said. "You thought about someone's real problem and found a way to solve it. That's what innovation is about." The boy beamed with pride. That night, when he showed his mother the prototype, she laughed softly and wiped her eyes. "You made this for me?" she asked. He nodded shyly. "So you don't have to hurt your back anymore when things fall?" She tried it, and it worked perfectly. She looked at him with so much love it almost made him cry. "You're going to go far," she said. "I can feel it." The next week, the man from the flat tire, his mentor now, came to visit the program. He often stopped by to speak with the students, encouraging them to chase their goals. When he saw the boy's project, he was genuinely impressed. "You designed this yourself?" he asked. "With help from my team," the boy replied modestly. "That's what makes it even better," the man said with a smile. "Real progress happens when we work together." He asked if he could take a few photos of the invention and the team. The boy agreed, though he didn't think much of it. But a few days later, something unexpected happened. The man called him again. "You might want to check the Thompson Technologies website," he said. His voice sounded amused. The boy quickly borrowed a computer at the program's lab and opened the website. There, right on the main page, was an article titled, "Young Innovators Build Tools for a Better Tomorrow." In one of the pictures, he saw himself holding the small device he had made, smiling shyly at the camera. His heart pounded as he read the article. It mentioned how students from low-income backgrounds were creating real solutions, and how one boy's simple invention could help people with physical limitations. His name wasn't used, just a dedicated student from the Youth Academy. But he didn't mind. The recognition was enough. It felt like the world had finally noticed what he could do. The story spread quickly. Local newspapers picked it up, and soon a community organization reached out to the academy, offering small grants to students who wanted to improve their designs. His team received one of those grants. It wasn't much, but it meant they could build a sturdier version of their tool and test it further. Every evening after class, the boy stayed behind, perfecting the design. The man often stopped by, bringing snacks and encouragement. "You remind me of myself at your age," he told him once. "Only I think you're even more determined," the boy smiled. "I just want to make something that matters." "And you are," the man said sincerely. By the end of the term, their team's project was chosen for a special showcase event, where students would present their work to local business leaders and investors. The boy couldn't believe it. He had never even worn a suit before, and now he'd be standing in front of people who could change his future. The night before the event, he couldn't sleep. His mother noticed him pacing and said gently, "You're ready. Don't doubt yourself now. Just speak from your heart." The next morning, he put on the suit the academy had provided. It felt a bit too big, but he didn't care. As he arrived at the event hall, he saw large banners, bright lights, and cameras. The crowd made him nervous, but when he spotted the man in the audience giving him a reassuring nod, he took a deep breath and smiled. When it was his turn, he walked to the stage and started talking, not with fancy words, but with honesty. He spoke about his mother, about watching her struggle to pick things up after long hours of work, and how that inspired his invention. He explained how teamwork made the idea possible, and how they wanted to improve it so it could help others too. The audience was quiet at first, then someone started clapping. Soon everyone joined in. When he looked up, he saw the man standing too, clapping the loudest, a proud smile on his face. After the presentations, several people came to talk to him, business owners, teachers, even a local reporter. They asked questions, took photos, and congratulated him. He couldn't stop smiling. It felt unreal. Later that day, as the crowd thinned, the man walked up to him. "You did it," he said, shaking his hand firmly. "You told your story and people listened. That's power." "I just told the truth," the boy replied humbly. "That's exactly what made it powerful," the man said. Then he reached into his pocket and handed the boy a small envelope. "This is something for you. A step toward what comes next." The boy opened it and found a letter, a recommendation for an advanced technology summer camp run by Thompson Technologies. It included full sponsorship, travel expenses, and even a small stipend. His eyes widened. "Sir, this is," the man interrupted softly. "You earned it. You showed heart, talent, and humility. I promised myself I'd help someone who reminded me of where I came from. I'm keeping that promise." The boy didn't know what to say. He just nodded, his throat tight, his eyes glassy with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered. "Don't thank me," the man said. "Just keep doing what you're doing. Someday you'll be the one helping someone else find their chance." That night, when he got home, his mother hugged him tightly. They sat at the kitchen table, reading the letter again and again. She smiled through tears. "You're going to see the world, my son," she said softly. "And the world is finally going to see you." He didn't sleep that night either, but for a different reason. He stayed up thinking about how far he'd come. From a small act of kindness on a roadside to standing on a stage, being recognized for something he loved. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The summer camp was held in a large modern center far from the city. The boy had never traveled that far before, and everything felt new. The bus ride through the green countryside, the tall buildings that came into view as they arrived, and the huge sign that read Thompson Technologies Innovation Camp. His heart raced with excitement and nerves as he stepped off the bus, holding his small backpack tightly. Inside, the place buzzed with energy. Students from different parts of the country were already there, talking, laughing, and showing off gadgets they had built. The boy felt shy at first, unsure if he fit in, but one of the instructors, a kind man with glasses, greeted him warmly. "Welcome. You must be the young inventor we've heard about," he said with a smile. "We're glad to have you." The first few days were intense but thrilling. Each morning began with workshops on design and coding, followed by group challenges where they had to build working projects in a short time. The boy found himself surrounded by others who shared the same curiosity. It was the first time he didn't feel out of place for asking too many questions or spending extra hours tinkering with wires and circuits. His favorite part was the lab, a large room filled with computers, small machines, and endless boxes of tools. The instructors encouraged creativity. "Don't be afraid to fail," they said often. "Failure means you're trying something new." That idea stuck with him. Whenever a project didn't work, instead of getting frustrated, he looked for what he could fix. Slowly, he began to stand out. His group always finished their assignments early, and others started coming to him for help. Even though he was quiet, his calm focus inspired the others to keep going. One evening, after a long day of work, he was sitting outside by himself, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. The man, the millionaire he had once helped with a flat tire, appeared beside him. He was visiting the camp to check on the students' progress. "You've come a long way," the man said gently. "Do you remember that day on the road?" The boy nodded, smiling faintly. "Of course, sir. It changed everything for me." The man looked out at the horizon. "It changed something for me, too. That day reminded me that kindness still exists. You helped me without expecting anything, and because of that, I wanted to help you. But truthfully, you're the one who did all the work." The boy looked down at his hands. "I just tried to make the most of what you gave me." "And that's what makes you special," the man said. "Most people get opportunities and don't use them. You grabbed yours and built something beautiful out of it." They sat in silence for a while, the warm evening breeze passing between them. The boy finally asked, "Do you ever think about why some people get lucky and others don't?" The man smiled softly. "I think luck finds people who are ready for it. You were ready, even if you didn't know it then. The next morning, the final challenge of the camp was announced. Each team had to create something that could help a community in need. The boy immediately thought of his neighborhood, the broken streetlights, the unsafe sidewalks, and how dark it got at night. His mind began to race with ideas. He wanted to build something that could make those streets safer without costing much. He spent the next few days sketching, testing, and coding. His team built small solar-powered lights that could be attached to walls or fences. They charged during the day and glowed at night, bright enough to light the way but simple enough for anyone to install. When their prototype worked, the whole group cheered. At the final presentation, teams showcased their creations to judges and mentors. Some built water filters, others smart sensors, but when it was his turn, he spoke with quiet confidence. He told the story of his neighborhood, how people struggled walking home in the dark, how children feared the shadows, and how he wanted to change that. He showed how his design worked, explaining every part in plain words. The lights were made from recycled materials and powered by small solar panels. "It doesn't take much to make people feel safe," he said softly at the end. "Sometimes it just takes light." When he finished, there was a long pause, and then the room erupted in applause. The judges stood, impressed not only by his invention, but by the heart behind it. That evening, during the closing ceremony, the boy's name was called. He had won the top award, Innovator of the Year. The man stood on the stage, clapping proudly as the boy walked up to receive his medal. The audience cheered and cameras flashed, but all the boy could think about was his mother waiting back home and how happy she would be. When the ceremony ended, the man took him aside. "I have another surprise for you," he said. "Thomson Technologies has decided to sponsor your education. You'll be starting high school next year at one of the best institutions in the state. Full scholarship, including living expenses." The boy stared at him in disbelief. "Sir, I don't even know what to say." The man smiled warmly. "Say you'll keep working hard. That's all I ask." "I will," the boy promised, his voice shaking. "I won't waste this chance." On the last day of camp, as everyone packed to go home, the boy stood for a long time looking at the building one last time. He thought about everything that had happened, from helping a stranger change a flat tire to being here, holding an award that could open doors to his future. It didn't feel real, but it was, and deep inside he knew this was just the start. When he returned home, his mother was waiting at the bus stop. She rushed to hug him, tears in her eyes. "I missed you," she said, holding him tightly. "I missed you too, Mom," he said, smiling through his own tears. "I have so much to tell you." That night they sat at the kitchen table just like before. He showed her pictures from the camp, the robots, the lights, the award. She listened quietly, her eyes full of pride. "You're making your dreams come true," she said softly. He shook his head. "We are," he corrected her. "You believed in me when no one else did." A few weeks later, the local newspaper ran another story about him, this time with his name. It talked about how a young boy's act of kindness had led him to change his own life, and maybe someday others' lives too. The story spread online, inspiring people across the city. Some wrote letters to him, thanking him for showing that hard work and kindness could lead to something good. The man called again soon after. "You've become quite the inspiration," he said with a laugh. "How does it feel?" "It feels strange," the boy admitted. "I just did what felt right." "That's exactly why people admire you," the man replied. "You remind them that good things can still come from simple hearts." Years later, the boy grew into a young man. He studied hard, always remembering where he came from. He continued designing small inventions that helped his community. Better lights, cheaper gadgets, even small tools for schools. His name began to appear in local magazines and news features. Eventually, he earned a place at a top university, studying engineering. When he received his first job offer, from Thomson Technologies itself, he thought back to that dusty roadside where it all began. The day he stopped to help a stranger with a flat tire had changed.